All right, it's been a wild few days in terms of the free speech debate, and I really think that there's so much ground to cover that it's hard to keep up. First of all, because I've moved over to doing more uploads than any live streams, so I'm going to do kind of a housekeeping note at the end of this and probably at the end of a number of other videos. But I think all of you have started to pay attention to some of these creators that I've been watching. Tim Pool, for example. I know a lot of you have probably been watching him anyway, and Sticks. And it's been an explosive couple days, especially for Pool. Yesterday he appeared on Joe Rogan, and what I would have to say is one of the most amazing podcasts of all time, where he confronted Jack Dorsey and Jack Dorsey's lawyer, or moderator, whatever the hell you call her, over all of the censorship issues that are on Twitter. That was a huge step forward. And the Gab Dissenter tool is becoming more and more useful. And I particularly like it because it helps me bookmark kind of these notifications for people. It's both on the website that I want it to lead to, and you're able to share it with your Gab followers. So I think that's a positive development. And there's a lot of positive developments that are going on. Yes, there is the Trump declaration that he's going to sign an executive order concerning free speech on college campuses. The fact is, I think it's good. It might lead to some things that you might not want. I mean, I think you could end up having some, not just speakers, but like performers that come that are, they're pretty obscene and disgusting. So I don't know. I guess be careful what you wish for, but I'd rather have more free speech than no free speech, and that's really what I think we should be working for. You don't have to be an economic libertarian in order to be a civil libertarian. I think those two do go together to a certain extent, but I think people can have, they can have other economic beliefs and still be a civil libertarian. Okay, and there's a lot of debate going on about what should be your reaction to some of these totalitarian leaders abroad that don't necessarily respect freedom of the press. People like Duterte and Erdogan and Bolsonaro. Bolsonaro, I don't think has jailed anyone. Certainly Maduro and Putin. And I think in every case you do want to say, well, if these people want to benefit their countries, then why would they be so afraid of inquisitive journalists? Some journalists abuse the codes of ethics. Some journalists do break the law, but if they're not breaking the law and all they're doing is criticizing you, then maybe you're not really looking out for the best interests of your country. You're looking out to protect your image and protect the way that the world is perceiving the things that you're doing, and that's really a problem. I argue with people over the China censorship and things like that. Look, I don't think we should demonize any one country. I don't care whether it's China or Turkey or Iran or anyone. I think we should give them the proper criticism, sometimes harsh criticism, but in the end, I think that most of you would agree with me that we're not trying to basically fix somebody else's fence so that they to keep their garden safe, right? We're as Americans, I think we can help people abroad, but we can't really force them to make the decisions that'll make their lives better. That's not really what our mission in the world is. Okay, as a country, I guess. As individuals, right? You don't go to work and basically micromanage your coworkers' jobs. There is a manager who does that, who does manage their own employees, but When you see people go and tell other people exactly what to do, that's not always constructive. Now, with freedom of the press and freedom of expression, um, it's not really easy to. It's not an easy river to navigate. There's certainly a lot of countries where you see that the lack of freedom, the lack of journalistic, uh, leeway is leading to a society that is basically, it's collapsing within itself. You see that in Pakistan. You see that in a lot of these nations. And I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. It's kind of a freestyle thought here. But in terms of what's going on here with this episode with Ilhan Omar and whatever. Now, before I leave the foreign cases, people should remember that I believe it was yesterday that Venezuela's police, their military police, I think it was, or their security police, arrested a guy named Weddle. I think it was Cody Weddle, who's a freelance photographer down there in Venezuela. And those of you that are anti-interventionists, just like me, you have to realize that once a regime starts to arrest journalists from foreign countries, they are breaking kind of a rule in terms of, where they stand with the rest of the world. Okay, does that justify a foreign intervention? No. Does that justify saying that this country is ruled by an idiot, ruled by a person who can't really, process the fact that, people are paying attention to what he's doing in his country? You have to balance anti-interventionism with common sense. Okay. Now getting back to this Ilhan Omar saga, which is I find it funny personally. A lot of people don't find it funny. There was a woman who said today on one of these Jewish forums, she said she's sitting Shiva for America. And at first I was reading it because I'm used to sometimes reading things that like Indian people put out. I was like, sitting Shiva? Like the they have their deity, Shiva in Hindu. No, and I was like, oh wait, yeah, sitting Shiva. So, no, I'm not sitting Shiva at all. I think that this is a painful but necessary process for America. We have to see people for who they are. And you can't see people for who they are if you don't give them the freedom to express what they want to say, even if it's retarded, even if it's somebody who's basically a complete idiot, Ilhan Omar, somebody who wants to have Minnesota, the Attorney General of Minnesota, Keith Ellison, who was himself like a dumbass, who pretended, I was never in the Nation of Islam, I never supported Farrakhan, I never did it, I only went to the Million Man March. So she wants him to investigate USA Powerlifting for not wanting to allow transsexual athletes to participate in women's events. This Sharia law supporting fraud. She's saying, well, what about my freedom of speech? I want to be able to criticize Israel or whatever. I'm like, okay. What's your problem? Well, why is it that people are pledging allegiance to a foreign country and they're basically doing it for the money and lobbyists and etc. I'm sorry, but you're receiving money from lobbyists too, and you're receiving help from lobbyists. You're receiving help from CARE. CARE is a lobbyist group. CARE is also, they work on behalf of who? Foreign interests. The foreign interests of basically an international network of Islamist preachers who want to create a more Muslim world. Okay, so no, you have freedom of speech, but you don't have standing to talk about what you're talking about. You're basically what we would call full of crap. You're a hypocrite. That should be the response to Ilhan Omar. Yeah, yeah. Talk about what you want, but you're dumb as dirt, and your criticism is kind of empty. I mean, why should anybody listen to you? Somebody who's trying to sue a powerlifting association for doing gender segregated events. Yet I'm sure you probably go to almost all mosques that are Sunni Muslim and are traditionalist would be gender segregated. It just doesn't, And then she would probably say, well, that's protected under freedom of speech grounds in the First Amendment, freedom of religion, and all that. Yes, just like a powerlifting event. Just like a powerlifting event can be gender segregated, right? I mean, it's not the Powerlifting Association isn't a government entity. They don't have to give in to this gender bending freak show that the progressives have foisted on us. It's like either shit or get off the pot. Either you're for this strict doctrinaire Sharia law that basically reduces men and women into separate classes of people, one of which is basically allowed to abuse the other, force the other one into living a life of basically concealment, or you don't, or you believe in this in this mutated garbage that the progressives have today. Now, I think they're both pretty bad, but you do have to pick one. You can't pick both of them. They're a bit self-contradictory if you really look at the details, right? So, this Ilhan Omar thing, it's an excellent exhibit of the Democrats. You see these Democrats for the past 2 years, the first 2 years under Trump, they complain nonstop. He's an anti-Semite, he's a racist, he's a bigot, he's a xenophobe, he's a homophobe, he's a claustrophobe, I don't know, germaphobe. Complain nonstop. Now, many of them were saying, well, we condemn this woman, Ilhan Omar, but we can't agree how to condemn her. We don't have any actual tangible steps we're going to take to discipline her, but we're going to condemn her. Also, we can't even pass our own resolution to condemn her. So I guess we're just going to hang tight and see what happens. That's the Democratic Party basically. They've speech policed everyone else until within their own movement, people start to say, well, now that we're telling everyone else what they can or can't say about gender, about race, about religion, about about people's body types, fat shaming or whatever. I don't care if you guys fat shame me, but now that they've speech policed everyone else, the real crazies within the party are saying, wait, we want our freedom of speech so that we can take our phony causes and yell at people for not listening to us. Yell at people. No, that's the Democratic Party. You had Elizabeth Warren, Kamala Harris, and Bernie Sanders come out and defend Ilhan Omar, and that's okay if they want to do it. But then don't complain. Don't complain when there's similar cases on the right. This Steve King guy, I went through most of his tweets. I was like, the fuck cares what this guy says? It's not even like, I'm surprised to my knowledge, Steve King is just some dude who said something about European culture being America's culture and everything. There's a lot of people who say that, and frankly, I don't care about it. I think it's a stupid issue, and they wanted him to basically be kicked out of Congress and buried in a hole in the middle of nowhere for saying that. And now they have this Ilhan Omar pretending that she cares about lobbying money. You don't give a fuck about lobbying money. You take it all the time. Took it from banks, lawyers, took it from health insurance companies in Minnesota, United Healthcare Group contributed to her. What the fuck? She doesn't care about PAC money. These people are taking PAC money up the ass. All of them. that's about it. Going to premiere this one at 10 a.m. 10:45 a.m. is part 2 of my special two-part examination of this Bernie Sanders interview with Charlemagne the God. And I think, what do you guys want to do? Let's maybe do an email list so you guys can get the notifications direct rather than depending on YouTube or whatever. I'm going to try to do this a little more on Gab. It doesn't always work out for me, but we'll see what happens. I don't have access to Gab during the day because I have a job and I'm not going to use Gab at work. But that's about it. Please like, share, subscribe. Subscribe to me on BitChute and on Gab and Minds. I'll talk to you guys later.